Just come back whenever you want. Does anybody want to tell us their experience of before and after? Shannon?
The the chaos of the day dropped away, and being in this now moment with people I haven't met before, and some I have, and want to know more of. This is a place of great anticipation for me. There is good things in the offing, and I anticipate wondrous happenings. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Anybody else? There's only 4 of us. Dawn?
Okay, guys.
Hold on.
Great.
Yeah, I've been under the weather for a week, and so and I've actually just been staying to myself. So this is a lovely little gathering, and I just felt peaceful, which was nice, and no expectations. I don't. That's just gently here. So.
And what were you feeling before?
Frustration. I am my number one core value is health and well-being, and being knocked on my butt and not being able to do all the things I want to do is not something I take easily. And yet I could, my body is just asking me to just in action, right? So when you said no words, because when you're, so in action has been the theme, and I've been doing a good job with it. I actually made a point of making no contact with people so that I would just literally be with my body in its state of healing, and allow that to just be without trying to do something. I'm always doing something. So, but I am getting antsy. I'm not gonna lie.
The mind creeps back in.
Yeah, she do.
Cool. Yeah. It was just a good small break for me. I was a good start. So Amber. So Amber is on shift as a caregiver, so she's listening in. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So I
Okay, Joe.
yeah.
I need to check your step. I need to check your eyes for a second.
Okay. So what we'll have to Amalia, so this is it's going to be an hour. What we'll have to do, Tangelina, is just mute it or let her know that we're going to be on a call for an hour.
Yep, Amalia, we're going to be on a call now.
We can talk later or play. Okay. So, all right. All right. So, yeah, normally there's a lot of stuff that was put in by people, and what I can do is I can share with you guys the ideas that other people have. But I guess first I want to set a little context about what we're doing here. So, obviously a universal agreement is something that you would want anyone you come across within any scenario for the rest of your life to be in alignment with. So, it wouldn't be as specific as doing your, do your laundry when, don't put your laundry on the floor, because that's you know, someone's personal thing in their personal space. Certain spaces may get cleaned up after the event, you know, automatically, and some may not, you know. So these are really universal things that you would want. A lot of people approach agreements from a point of how they want to feel and what kind of relationships they want to have with people. These agreements were mostly designed from a whole systems perspective of how does a society organize, but it's also got some stuff in there about how we're feeling. But for the most part, how the experience we're creating is mostly created through the events and the spaces we're at, which are space agreements. That helps us, because if they're not in our space, then they're just then we're just dealing with them either online, or we might run into them in a space, but those space agreements can cover those experiences, because people want different things when it comes to experiences in general. So these are mostly designed from a whole systems perspective. For example, having clear agreements posted on the wall is of a space you enter, allows us to know instantly what's happening in that space. So this it could relate to an experience, but it more has to do with creating a culture of honor and respect, so that people know, and clarity, so people know when they come into that space what's expected. So there won't be misalignment from the very beginning, which is very hard to dissipate once we have misalignment in the field and the container there is no container, or it's broken. It's very hard to reestablish that, as I'm sure we all know. So these are mostly to help us in a societal level, you know, gain control of our own agreement fields and our own spaces, so that we can do what we want and create what we want in those spaces. There might also be some stuff like don't murder, don't kill, don't steal, you know, but those are mostly covered currently by the current law system, so we didn't cover all of those. And then, so the next thing I wanted to say is, yeah, they're meant to be light. It's meant to transform into a culture. Eventually, agreements fall away. Things like a clarity of a space would not fall away. Even if we're culturally are doing things differently, we would still want to know what's happening in that space, you know, because culture or no culture, you know, you can't know all things all the time just because you have culturally aligned to something. But when someone comes into a new culture, they might have everyone say, oh no, you do it like this. Oh no, you do it like this, because they've already ingrained all these let's just say agreements. They have them ingrained to the point where, and these are meant to be modified and grow. So this universal is very slow growing. It's, you know, it changes once a year. We have an update. We can do it more often if we need, if it would be an emergency or something. But mainly it's a very slow growing. Organizational is the next. They can grow quicker and evolve quicker, but they're still kind of like there in general. And then space agreements change, you know, constantly. They can change. They can raise my hand and say, hey, does everyone agree to do this? It could be that fast, you know. So so that's, oh, we got one more person coming in. That's a brief on agreement fields. And another thing, we're going to be looking at some agreement fields that were designed in other places. Most of these I've found, about 90%, are not agreement. They are, hey, Steve.
Hey there.
So most,
Sorry
Yeah.
about that. Couldn't find the link. So
oh, that's fine. So yeah, we're just explaining one more thing of some context, which you know a lot of this, but I'm gonna keep it explaining. Okay. So the last thing about the agreements is to set a context for them. Is let me see where I was going with this. Okay, so these agreement fields that people set, they're usually not really agreement fields. They're principles. So be loving, or, you know, have integrity is very vague. You know, what does that look like? So have integrity with your agreements is one thing, but use the correct, using the correct that's pretty clear, because if you have an agreement, you can measure if you've fulfilled it or not. But if you make the agreement be loving all the time, and you're expected to be integral to that, and you look down and someone says, oh, you weren't loving because you didn't look at me or something, then you're instantly made wrong. And then these agreement fields don't work. Those are not agreements, those are principles. So a lot of these things that were suggested and that you're going to be looking at are principles. If you further define those, like, hey, use this process to update your agreements, and here's a clear process, then that would be, that can turn into agreement. So you can turn principles into agreements. But just knowing that as we look at these agreements, why they're made, how they're made, and this will be a consensus update. So we've all agreed on them. Everyone who shows to the call is considered consensus. Plus, we will send the email out to everyone. If anyone has anything to say about our, decision or whatever you want to call it, then we can speak about that with them. I can take the time to speak about it with them, and we can look for a third solution. And so you might see another pop up like, hey, this agreement, what do you guys think about this? Worst case. For this first round, hopefully next year, like Tangelina said, we can make it a little somehow smoother, and maybe you could help think about that, Tangelina. I suggested we could host this on Mighty Networks, but in truth, email is a great backup. Everyone receives their email, and we have everyone's email. Okay, is everyone clear? Does anyone have any questions on things moving forward? Okay. All right, so then I will share my desktop and we will look at a couple things. Let's look at this pretty one first, because it's cool to look at. Okay, so this is an example of values and principles. I'm going to make it a little bigger. I'm going to move this over. You can see it. Okay, so these are good values. The non-aggressive principle, non-aggression, it's a value. Self-governance, it's a value, it's a concept. Values they have a pretty vague boundary. Like a value could be Gandhi. I could say, hey, my value is Gandhi. And it just, what I mean when I say that, right? I don't have to, explain it. So, self-governance could be a value. Communal effort, renewable resources. So these are great values. That's why I grabbed this. The true process is you get your values straight, and then you create your principles, and then you create your agreements. So these guys have done a good job of both of these, as far as I can tell. And so these are something we can look at, and we can have another design shop on just this, and keep modifying as we go. So this can really be a robust system, and we can utilize everything that everyone studied. I can tell by looking at this has been very well resourced and studied. And we studied our values. We took them from Futurist Playground, who took years and years to study. Well, we worked with them, not took it from them, but we worked with them to create a value system. Okay, so this is something I guess I can post it in the chat. If you guys want to be able to look at it, yeah. Or I can create, yeah. So on Mighty Networks, once again, we can do all this stuff. So the new system automatically filters people in. So what I'll have to do is send a link to everyone for the Mighty Networks. And once you take this little training, it's just a revamp of our process, but it's seriously about an hour. And anyone that's taken that will be into, anyone can get into Mighty Networks. It's a healing and personal transformation network. But to get into the new paradigm group that's within that, called Full Potential Network, takes the alignment, and basically most of you've all done that initial alignment, and you get to see the new one if you choose. And if you for some reason don't want to, just tell me, hey, can you please just get me into that group? I don't want to take the training. because all of you have taken the basic training. Although, like I said, this is revamped and it does have changes and it does have modifications and it has a lot more clarity and it's a great resource. So I would highly suggest going through that. All right, so let's look at the actual agreements and then Brett's suggestions. I didn't personally have any suggestions. This is a meeting for you guys. So if anyone, I know that you didn't have much time and you still, so if there's anything anybody already came up with as they reviewed them, then this is the time. I don't think, it's a time to go over all of them together, but we can definitely go over any modifications that people want. And we'll start with Brett's. And then we can, if anybody has a burning desire, we're gonna probably have a week or two before we actually wrap this up. So if you come back after the call and have something to fit, else that you wanna talk about, then just let's do it for this year. And then next year we'll be more organized.
Josh,
Yes.
I know that Brett provided some comments and I know others have provided comments. Can we have the all comments on each one together? Or
did that.
would that work?
Yeah, I did that. So this is that, and then this is the other comments.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yep. It's all in one thing. So we're there. Now, but see, these are going to flow right along with the other comments. I'm just going to minimize this. Are going to flow right along with that chart that we just looked at. Lee Davies a big part of creating these Unify. He's studied a lot of these different fields that are out there right now, and so you can see them on top of each other. The non-aggressive principle, boom, which is what Thrive is using, which I really love. And he notes where these come from. So I'm going to set a call with him and we're going to have a call and we can just invite people to that too, if anybody wants to show, where we kind of hash through some of these, but truthfully, most of this will probably end up, we'll just have to see. It's an exploration, not necessarily like an official update type of thing, or mastermind necessarily. So it's just an exploration. But yeah, I can ask him if he's cool with everyone joining that. And if so, I'll send a link as we talk about these things or record it or whatever he's comfortable with. But for now, I've got them here, but since we don't know what they are, this is something, you'll have a recording of this video. I'll send you all these notes and you'll have access to all the information you need at the end of the call. Okay. Before we get started with Brett, did anyone else, and just raise your hand if you did, and if you can't raise your hand, just, I guess you can say something. Did anyone else have anything that they have looked through the agreements and wanted clarity or modification?
I had a quick question, if I could just drop in. Josh, are these agreements available for other organizations to utilize?
Of course, yeah, they're not closed source in any way, form, or fashion.
Okay.
The new software we're building, and there's which is like about 40% built, and this is pretty cool because I'm not a software guy and I've been trying to struggle with creating this platform, but I get to be a designer on the platform and not have to code it or fund it or any of that. So it's pretty cool. But we will have the options of, all this stuff will be modular where people can drag and drop agreement fields and understand how they interact with others. It's really mind-blowing what's about to come. So just to let you guys know, it is on its way. And these things they're gonna really allow us to, what they're gonna allow mostly is people to start to form new paradigm organizations. That's the biggest benefit, a new paradigm society, new paradigm organizations. The second biggest is they will create coherence they will create agreement fields that help us dictate and understand how we interact with others and where we're at. And they will They will also, there's also other software, which I'm not, they'll have the sense making app is going to be built in there so that we'll be able to, within an organization or a community, be able to, use different governing models depending on what we've agreed on, use different agreement fields depending on what we agree on, and have all that modular so that we can plug it in and access it. There's so many more benefits, creating new economies that will be a part of this new software. Hi, Grace. And Paulin is coming. Cool. Haven't seen Paul in a while. So we've gone through the intro. So we've done a 30-minute intro, and there's 2 new people. So, but both of you are very familiar with what's going on anyway. So Grace and or Paul, do either one of you? We're going to go through the updates that were pointed out by Brett. But if we wanted to ask if there's anyone else, just raise your hand or speak. If there's anyone else that has gone through them and has an idea for clarity or update. No. Okay. Cool. Hey, Paul. Long time no see. We'll have to catch up after this or sometime. Cool. All right. So, all right. So this is the Brett's suggestions for an updates. So these are universal. So this is a consensus process. If it's updated, we can look at something to decide if it's a solution to something, and we can all talk about how to create something that's going to cover that. Other than that, if it's just a change or a preference, it's considered an update. It would need consensus of everyone. And even solutions, we're looking for consensus. It'd be very rare that, I don't think there's going to be a point where we cannot move forward without consensus. Once we have established communities and stuff, we will need consensus because people will have invested their life into the agreement field in the process. But for now, we can potentially still do a little modification, but really we're looking for consensus. Okay, so I agree if I do not honor space agreements that are clearly posted and I have refused gentle reminders, I may be asked to leave the space. If I do not leave upon request by a steward or a group inhabiting the space, I realize I may be disqualified from receiving level 3 currency, which is attached to my rent. I put a modification here. So I may be disqualified from receiving, which is attached to my rent, which can be attached to my rent. Okay. Obviously it's not always people aren't always gonna be using this level 3 currency. So, is there anyone on, I'm going to do it this way instead of, trying to wait for hands. Is there anyone that does not see that modification or does not agree with that modification? If so, raise your hand or say something. I'm just changing it from which is attached to my rent to which can be, obviously. Yeah. Cool. Easy. All right, the next one. So this is, I'll just put a little thing by it. Okay, I agree that if I do not honor space agreements, that the group stewarding the space may log my removal for others to see. So this is a reputation economy. We're agreeing that we will be a part of a reputation economy. Allowing us to gain a little bit more coherency in the field and use reputation economies to understand flows of energy and how things are. I agree if I'm not honoring universal agreements in a space enough times that I may be asked to attend a training course. If I'm to go back to a training course, I understand there may be fees required. There we have may be, which is good. Okay, so Brett says, I feel like these 3 are kind of incomplete, but cannot yet quite name it elegantly. I think they will require a revisiting as we get going, probably before next year. Okay. So this isn't really a direct request for a change. It's just more of a, and I responded, yes, space agreements are not covered here. So these would feel incomplete because these are about spaces. So of course they're going to feel incomplete, but we wanted to have some overarching omnipresent agreements about spaces so that we can have that bridge between universal and spaces. That's all these are meant to do. We don't want to put space agreements into the universal at all. So that's why they're probably feeling clear to him. They're a just in case way to help set the foundation for others to create their space agreements. Yes. So we can definitely look at that together between this year and next year and modify. I don't think we're in any giant hurry to get these perfect right now. We still got to test run them. So anyway, so we're in perfect divine timing. Okay, here's something that he has commented on. If we lose respect for something, example, they do something we consider immoral, or it's our job to bring it to the world of agreement or accept it. See solutionary culture. Okay, has everyone gotten familiar with this? Has everyone gone here? I'll go ahead and read through it in case you haven't. And I apologize, I should have jumped on a full Zoom. I didn't. We'll have to go in 2 sections. When you have an upset with someone, it's your job to check the universal agreements and other agreement fields to see if you're handling the situation right. Then you take a look at the agreements to see if someone else was not handling them right, or they weren't honored somehow or some way. If there was something not being honored by yourself or another, if it's for yourself, you can recognize it and move forward. If someone else, you can bring it to the collective to clarify the agreements and intentions and create the accountability to honor what everyone's is counting on. For example, obviously you want to warn people first. You say, hey, excuse me, but if there's a discrepancy, this is when you're upset or there's a discrepancy or you weren't able to gently remind someone for whatever reason. Maybe they have a different idea of what they agreed to. If there is not an agreement to cover the issue, okay, so if there is an agreement, you bring it to the collective, you go through the processes. They're all available. If there's nothing to cover it, understand you're upset because there is no agreement. You're just upset over something you wanted to happen, which didn't happen in the way you wanted. And if there's a problem you are experiencing and you feel there's a solution, you may create a proposal and bring it to the collective for them to pass it. Most of these will be space agreements and not universal or maybe organizational. Okay, so that backs up this. Oops, that backs up this. If we have frustration, okay, we're judging something, we need to bring it to the world or accept it, and this helps define that agreement. So that's the simple agreement, and then that's the definition to really give us a clear path on that, okay? He says we should say here, if we lose respect for someone's actions or decisions, or we lose respect for anything among us. I think that's anything is a little unclear, so maybe we can work with that. It is our responsibility to make this experience visible to others and take aligned step to resolve it. I like all that. I think we could potentially change it. We can all talk about that and gain a consensus on what sounds best here. He says he's making an example. I feel that it's not clear. It starts by saying if we lose respect for something and then says they do something immoral. To me, it's confusing, and I agree. So how can we modify that? Anyone have any ideas? Otherwise, I can help. Anybody want to, or we can all look at it for a second. And if anybody has an idea, just chime in.
Josh, it's Shannon.
Yeah.
If we lose respect for someone, they do something we consider immoral. Something never does anything immoral.
That's right. Okay. Okay. So someone's actions. I like this. Instead of we lose respect for the person, maybe we were losing respect for something they did or their actions, like you said.
Because of their actions or decisions. Someone because of their actions or decisions. It's still, you're losing respect for someone because of their action or decisions or something that they say. And that's an action.
Okay. Now,
What about, sorry, hi, it's Amber. What about engaging in a way that is disrespectful engaging in disrespectful behavior or actions?
Well, it's so the whole point of this is that it gaining clarity on whether that was. So if we're assuming that it was disrespectful is kind of the opposite of what we're doing. We're actually saying we don't know if it wasn't disrespectful necessarily. It was either in alignment with the agreements or it wasn't. So really disrespect is not, there's a story behind disrespect, first of all. It's like, oh, you disrespect. It's really that they didn't follow the agreements. We decided to create a story about that person's actions saying, oh, I'm losing respect for them as a person because of this action. The truth is they either did something or didn't, and we have full power to bring that to the world of agreements and fully rectify it. So there's no reason to get lost in a culture of disrespect. So this is to avoid all that. This is to create a culture of honor and respect.
Okay, so maybe it could just be clarified in to address incoherency.
Yes. So if we, maybe the word respect, if we feel incoherency, that someone has been if we feel someone has been incoherent with something.
How about if I am offended by something that seems out of alignment?
Yeah, and so this next one, let me just add this in so that we're all on the same page. This other agreement is very similar, just to let you guys know. I agree to honor myself and others by asking questions and seeking understanding. It's a different agreement, instead of getting upset or making assumptions or judgments. Okay. So we're upset. We seek an understanding through questions. Hey, did you realize this was an agreement that we weren't supposed to, destroy property? For example, someone destroys some property. We get upset. Hey, what'd you do? Instead of, we would say, hey, did you realize that, you're not supposed to destroy property? And they would say, either, oh my God, I had no idea. I thought this was, I thought, we were here to play. These things are toys or something. So you can rectify that with that. Now, however, we need to bring it to the world of this agreement here up front is about the process of bringing that in. They could be one agreement. This could be like a first, this is almost actually should be